I was born in the Huon Valley. My mum and dad were born and lived in the Huon Valley.
I had never been down to the Huon, which is quite interesting, even though I grew up in Hobart.
Short run from South Australia. That's where we lived just before you came here.
I was born in East Launceston and my family are all Tasmanian.
Yeah, I was born in England. I migrated to New Zealand when I was 17.
Born in Franklin, and the upper Nurse Cuthbert's up where the elder care is now.
46, we moved down here. Dad bought a butcher shop.
Hong Kong, and went to Canada, and go to United States for 44 years, and then came here.
Lived all my life, first 21 years on the west side of Glen Huon.
I was based in Sydney in Lane Cove.
Hackensack, New Jersey, overlooking New York City.
Thousands of years, you know, like our ancestors. Yeah, so there's a lot of history for our ancestors in this area.
From Canberra most recently.
I was living in this place in Spain, in Tenerife. It pushes your profile up a bit in terms of, you know, a family coming from Europe on a boat.
I grew up in the Huon Valley.
We first moved here in 1991.
I'm from Essex in England.
21 years old, born and raised here.
I grew up in a little country town in Western Australia called Minganew. It's wheat belt country.
I grew up in Hull, which is a fishing port in England.
I'm a fifth generation, the same as Bruce.
I've lived in the Huon Valley for most of my life. Moved here from South Australia when I was 1.
1959, I came back from England.
And I sort of went back then, but I didn't. No, I'm just been here.
You were born here? You were born here?
At Ranelagh.
At Ranelagh?
We lived up Ayers Road first. We moved from there when I was 2.
On my dad's side, he grew up in New South Wales, but my mum's family has lived in the Huon Valley for a while.
I'm a bit of a climate change refugee, coming from Sydney.
I grew up in Jakarta. It's a city. And then after that, I live in Singapore.
I've really lived in the valley most of my life, really, apart from stints in Hobart.
Well, I was born in Sydney.
I left England in February 1956.
I mean, I was born at Mountain River, my family lived there, and my dad lived in the same house for 82 years.
I lived here for about 8 months.
At the time, we'd been living and working in a village called Durham in the UK. It's very tiny.
Born at South Franklin. I was the youngest of 7 children.
I lived in Broome in Western Australia, so it was really hot there, and then we moved down here and it was pretty cold.
I was born in England and then we moved to Victoria, then to New South Wales, then to Queensland and then down here.
I'm a stranger in Glen Huon anyhow. I lived here most of my life, but I was born here.
I grew up or did high school in the north of the state. I moved to Western Australia in the 1980s.
I was born in Holland, in the north of Holland, in Groningen. And when I was 18, I decided to go and study in the UK, in London.
My great-great-grandfather's brother got given Woodbridge. All of it.
I mean, I've come from New Zealand and came here because my brother was here.
I've lived in Huon my whole life, so I've lived here in Huonville for 21 years.
And I'm from Hertfordshire, originally, in the UK.
Queensland, nearly 10 years ago.
You come to my street, one side of the street is all locals, born and bred, in and around my area. The other side of the street is literally California and Alaskans, Victorians, Sydney, South Australia, WA, South Australia, WA, Sydney, WA. It's mostly full of climate refugees.
When we live in Singapore, I don't like the hot weather because Taiwan also is about tropical weather too. So we agreed to find a little bit not too hot.
I looked for a place that was cooler. It had to have water.
And we looked everywhere in Australia where the climate was going to be, I guess, the best in future terms. And the Huon Valley came up.
And the first time I came down here, it was lush and green and full of vegetation.
I was always keen to live in the Huon Valley because I was beguiled by its beauty.
I've been renting on top of a mountain in Leamington or nearly Petcheys Bay, but the view down to the Huon River and across to the mountains behind Geeston, and then that has been absolutely stunning.
I said I'm going to Tasmania to pick apples, and my first husband followed me.
My mum remarried, and then they came here for the honeymoon.
Our ideal scenario was a small jetty in a quiet place that we could tie up to, and it's not going to cost us a fortune.
You know, the truth is we came to Tasmania because it was cheaper.
My son came down here. This is why I'm here. I said to Matt on the phone, you know, would you mind if I came to live in Tassie?
We came to Tasmania, I suppose, for the because the availability of whip blasting services was pretty good. Not many people come to Tasmania for the grip blasting, I know.
He said, I'm thinking we could live in Tajikistan, and I'm thinking maybe not, and then he said, or Australia, so I just went, yeah, let's do Australia.
To live in Tasmania and Huon Valley especially, you get all those things that you don't get in Singapore or in Jakarta.
Then from Abu Dhabi, I met my wife there, and we got married there, and we moved around until we came to Franklin.
So the Good family is an old Franklin family, and the Page family is an old Huonville family.
And growing up in Franklin in that period was just simply remarkable.
A lot of my mum's family have come from Geeston, so we're in Franklin.
And Roger just turned into a dairy farmer, and we lived in Franklin for 23 years.
I've always felt the connection to the Huon Valley.
We lived right as far out on the vale as you could get. We lived out there for about till I was 15.
We had a permaculture farm at Cygnet where we raised our kids.
Dad was offered a job in Tasmania.
So it gave me the really fantastic opportunity to retire from that, and guess where I wanted to come straight away was to Tassie.
And the friends that had sponsored us, they met us in Hobart, and we came straight to Glen Huon.
Put the caravan down and had a good tour around and got as far as the Huon Valley and decided this is it.
It's still a place where you went with your family, but your family for hundreds of years.
Employment, education took us away from the valley.
But you know, the Huon Valley in the 80s had a reputation of being pretty tired.
Lived in town for a while, but we come back to the Huon.
It is home, and I couldn't even imagine living somewhere else.
We were away overseas for 20 years, and then we saw lots of nice things happening in Tasmania, and at that time we hadn't decided on the Huon Valley, but we saw good things happening in Tasmania, and we thought maybe we should go back.